Talamoana, my fellow exiles, welcome to another Path of Exile 1 video, and this is a special one. We have SylverXYZ and Dreamcore here to talk all things patch 3.25 for PoE. It's Settlers of Kalguur. It's something that we were expecting to be, an okay-sized league. It's leading us into Path of Exile 2. We expected they're gonna go it's going to be at least a medium-sized league, right? They're going to get some cool balance changes, some cool content updates to tide us over until PoE 2 releases, and then they blew all of our expectations away. So let's begin with those initial reactions. Dreamcore, I know you had some technical difficulties on launch day, but when you actually got to watch the reveal, dude, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was just like this the whole time, Just like watching everything, just the one thing after the next, just crazy reveals. I think it's a lot of stuff that has been a long time coming, like all the melee things and stuff, and a lot of the other fundamental game changes, like, monster overwhelm and things like that. But I also I didn't really get this impression with Necropolis. When I saw Necropolis reveal, I wasn't particularly interested in the mechanic. I wasn't thinking that's going to be a fun mechanic to interact with, where this new one, I was immediately thinking this is going to be really fun as like a side addition to, just a general mapping. And I kind of like the real-time systems as well. I think that having too many of those things in the game would be problematic, but just having a few of them here and there is quite nice. So yeah, generally reveal was amazing. I think it looks really fun.
Awesome. We'll have to delve into those real-time systems a little bit further because that's the only thing I'm slightly worried about. But we'll talk about that in good time. Silver, initial reactions to the reveal.
Initial reaction, like everyone else, pretty blown away. I think it was the moment where they did the trailer or like the reveal, and it was like he walks out, Danig walks out, and he's like, "Welcome to King's March," and I was like, "Oh my god!" For some reason, that was the most like hype moment for me. I think because there was so much talk, and I mean, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but you absolutely nailed the speculation in terms of talking about how they might use King's March as a location, and just that, because as you guys know, I'm a huge PoE 2 fan, and so just having that connection was huge for me. But obviously mechanics like out the wazoo, we've got a lot to talk about there, I'm sure. So yeah,
most definitely. Yeah, my bingo board. I mean, I was one space away from having 5 bingos. One space away, which would have been insane. I went rampant with the speculation, and somehow I got it right. Did you guys do bingo cards? I didn't see any floating around.
I didn't do bingo cards, but I looked at yours, and I was thinking, he might get a bingo or two, but I wasn't expecting you to get so many squares.
I threw in that auction house stuff, the gold testing, just like, I mean, maybe it'd be kind of cool. It's, a settlement. We're using gold to fund everything inside of it. Let's throw it in there. And then bam, it's the second thing they reveal after respecking with gold. So just wild. So I echo a lot of your sentiments. I was blown away by the reveal, and I was streaming it, and it's the first time I've like live streamed a reveal and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know how to react because like, I was just stunned the entire time. Like, just thing after thing. When they spent 20 minutes explaining the leak mechanic, and I was like, well, the typical reveal stream ends right about there. And then they went another 25 minutes talking about all the other changes. Absolutely wild. Just wild stuff. So let's start with that leak mechanic, you guys. So for anyone who wants to follow along with what we're doing, I'm just going on the pathofexile.com/settlers page, and we're going to go fundamental by fundamental and talk about those. And then afterward, we're going to delve into league starter plans and the like. So first up, the Settlers of Kalguur Challenge League. Okay, Silver, what are your thoughts on it being an actual city builder in Path of Exile 1?
So this is a concept that I've actually hoped would eventually come into the game for a really long time. And then when we got the teaser, I remember chatting to you guys, and I chatted to a few other. I put a video out where getting a few predictions from like quite a few of the creators in the scene, and people were, and came up quite often in that people were talking about some sort of city building, some like real time or like asynchronous time, like we leave something running, it runs in the background kind of thing. And there was quite a lot of like nods to that. So I think it weirdly wasn't it wasn't a huge surprise. It didn't feel like a huge surprise because it felt like it was almost what people were kind of expecting, something like that, right? Some sort of resource gathering and protecting your resources. And even the way that you can have your bandits. We thought the resources might be ships, which they are, but they're kind of also it's like our employees, right? Our minions, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, like that didn't feel like a huge surprise. I think it's all of the things around it that we like the way you can build out the township and access to like rune crafting, which is a whole thing that like is like kind of the League power creep in a nutshell in my mind, on top of other things. Freaking recombinators coming back, like as well as that, like just so much. And then the ability to buy, like items. So it feels like those things that are like have just been kind of like side notes, like that no one's really talking. If this was any other league, people would be going nuts. The recombinators, it would be like the headline: recombinators are back. Recombinators are back, right? And people are excited about it, but it's just so overshadowed so overshadowed by the excitement of the league mechanic. Getting those shipments out, being able to start early and do it is kind of cool as well. And just like there's almost too much to talk about with it, right? Like sending people to run maps for you and just getting loot from that. So and again, the way that we actually collect the ores. And yes, it's just like kill monsters in a circle vibes, right? Like Ziggy touched on. Yeah, which we love, right? It works. But I love the way that they've all got different themes, and you're going to be quite excited when you get the like I can't remember what it is, but like the rune crafting material one, like the sort of rarer one that helps you do the enchants. So, dude, yeah, I don't even know what I've just said. Like there's so much to dive into.
It's a lot to list out. I feel like if we had any other league and we had 2 of those mechanics, we'd be pretty happy. But they just kept going and going and going with this league. And that's why I was so surprised by Jonathan and Mark both saying, yeah, no, this is what we want to do in the future, actually. Like, we just had time to cook. We had really good ideas. We sat down. We wrote everything out. And we just said, let's add it. Let's try it out. And once PoE 2 comes out, they want to continue doing this. I thought maybe they would have leaned into the whole, yeah, we really wanted to do something really big for PoE 1 before PoE 2. But they did it like 180. So isn't that wild, yeah. Dreamcore? Like, that's crazy.
I mean, they just went crazy. They went above and beyond with this league mechanic, I think. Like, it was kind of a lot of the stuff that people had, predicted for the league mechanic based on the name, but it was just all of it at once. It was just kind of everything that was going on. Some people predicted, like, a city builder, which it sort of is. There's things going on there, city builder elements. And then you've got the whole, like, sending out NPCs to do different tasks for you, right? And I love the idea that those NPCs that you send out, some of them might be really good and they sort of like complete maps for you or mine minerals and things like that. And some of them are just, they're running bad builds. They're running builds, like they're running melee a couple of leagues ago and they die in the map. And then you have to hire someone else, right? So, those things are really, really cool. It's just such a cool idea for a league mechanic.
Yeah, truly. Which part of it are you guys most excited about? So, Silver, you mentioned, the rune smithing. We all talked about the map running, all that stuff. What do you think individually you guys are most hyped about? And then, just as a community, what do you think will be the most well-received feature?
Interesting. Okay, so most well-received is an easy one. And I think I can class this as, the currency exchange market.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
Like, it's just a universal win. Like, obviously, it needs to be tested, and we'll see the implementation, right? But that is just such an obvious win for everyone. And I love the fact that in the Q&A, Jonathan was obviously a lot of it was Mark talking, and Mark just being based as hell, just like being like incredibly effective with his speech. But yeah,
he's done with Catalyst. He doesn't want to do Catalyst trading anymore on the currency market.
Yeah, exactly, right. But Jonathan just like, you could tell how excited he was to get gold and then to get this experimentation running. And I think that is just like something that is both going to be really exciting and good for PoE 2, but it's very well received for PoE 1, I think, just in the currency exchange. And then in terms of just like most exciting, for me, apart from, if I'm not saying the enchant thing, because I think that's just like, it's not necessarily the most exciting, it's just huge power creep, it feels like or like league, that's the borrowed power of the league. I would probably have to say, do you know what? Like, I'm gonna be a little bit boring, but it's like just having like testing out something with asynchronous, like the asynchronous time thing, like the real time thing, and because one of the things that I find that I don't get to play as much as I would love to, and I do feel like it could be a good leveler for. One of the things that happens so often is the economy runs away from you if you can't get the hours in. I feel like at times, that's when I play trade, and which I do mostly, and so I'll sort of won't be able to get as much time in the first 2 weeks a lot of the time, and because of that, I feel like it's sort of like you get this huge spread, and then you feel like you're catching up with the economy. Whereas I think this could really even that out, because obviously people are going to be able to level up their ships and maybe do like higher quality shipments and things. But the average player, I think if you were to like plot this on a graph, I imagine what would end up happening is like it's a bit of an equalizer, because there's only a maximum amount of shipments that you could probably run and get back in a certain time. So I think average players that are not on as much are going to be able to get a lot out of this, and it hopefully might equalize the economy a little bit and steady it. That's my thoughts.
I'm a little suspicious of these timer mechanics. I will not lie. As an MMO player, as someone who understands dailies and weeklies, I hope none of that is in there. I really don't. I hope there's not a lot of time gates throughout the league mechanic. Like, it sounds like both of you guys are kind of looking forward to the asynchronous stuff. Do you guys play lots of games like mobile games or any games that have these type of mechanics? Or
No.
Just curious. No?
No.
I've played Guild Wars 2
not.
obviously in the past, which has some of those, but I don't play mobile games, so.
Me as well. I'm wondering if they're going to try to really time gate stuff here to make it. I'm not being positive, I'm being cynical. If it's like a 4 to 6 month league, what if like you can only get one shipment every 2 weeks or something? I don't know. It's just like, I'm being a little cynical. I don't think that will happen.
Stop playing the villain, try.
That is what I thought in my mind when Mark was like, yeah, so some shipments will take longer than others, but look at all these rewards you get. If you're getting 3 tabs of awesome items, and one of them is like, 200 currency orb, 200 chaos orbs, 12 divine orbs, stuff like that. I do think that this is really good for that player that doesn't have a lot of time silver. I think that's a great point, and that's a point that I didn't even think of until you brought it up. It will equalize the market, which is really cool.
Yeah, just on your point around, I guess like the concerns of it becoming like dailies, and I think Jonathan and Mark were very keen in the Q&A to explicitly say that like this is not designed to be a chore.
Yes.
They were really adamant about that. Mark threw the mobile game bomb a few times, right? Like he actually like addressed that, and yes, it could maybe become a bit frictious, but no, I think the way they've designed it is just that you can load up a lot. If you want to, you don't have to worry about like going back to town and like collecting as much. That was what they were saying. Obviously, until we get hands on, it's hard to know. So I think they're very, very, very aware of this. They're not trying to make you got 700 gems and now you can, you have to go back on the app in 10 minutes or whatever.
Oh, please. I don't think that.
Yeah, I don't think that's not gonna happen.
No.
Yeah, it's just not good, they're the mobile fool guy, right? These are the people that made the joke, right? Like they know what to avoid. So I don't know. Definitely. What do you think, Dream?
I think going back to the original question, I think Silver hit the nail on the head. The most popular thing in this mechanic is going to be that like the currency exchange stock market type thing, if it's not really buggy or something, right? And I think there is going to be. We got to kind of be prepared for this, because obviously we know with GGG they're working all the way up to launch with adding things to the game and finishing things off. There probably is going to be a lot of bug fixing in that first week, 2 weeks, even 3 weeks. So be prepared for bugs, especially with the league mechanic, and maybe with some of the melee stuff as well. But I think for me, the thing that I'm most excited about, I mean, someone who's going to start SSF definitely this league, I really like the idea of being able to send these NPCs to do particular maps to be able to farm specific divination cards. That is something which is really nice specifically for SSF. I mean, obviously for trade, that's something that a lot of people will be doing, trying to like, get the jackpot, send an NPC into a map and hopefully, drop a Headhunter card or a Mage Blood card or something like that. But just for like divination card farming, purely for SSF, it's going to be really nice. And just generalized farming in that sense, it's a really nice addition. I think the rune smithing thing could be really interesting. It depends on what modifiers are actually on that bench. The ones that they show are quite powerful, like really powerful actually. But who knows what kind of other unique mods they've taken off of unique items and added in like a bit of a weaker capacity to those, because they are just enchantments going onto a weapon. There's no, you don't lose anything for really doing that. You would lose a heist enchant if you were using that instead, but or a quality enchant or something like that. But it's like Silver said, it's quite a bit of power creep, and that is the borrowed power for the league. So yeah.
And they're like, I think one of the things that it'll be interesting to see the retention numbers, because something that immediately made me think personally was, I don't know if you can hear seagulls.
We can hear the seagulls. That's amazing.
I live on the coast, guys. All right. It's made me lose my train of thought. Oh, so the thing that made me think is about the long tail retention of the league, and it immediately made me think. Like the Mjolnir fire skill, right? Like enchant that they showed. It's like, that's a build. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh, if I can farm up these runes and kind of get that access and stuff like that, I'm like, that's incredible. Like I've never thought, and it opens up so many different build ideas that are so exciting to maybe try later in the league when you've unlocked the things, you've got the resources to be playful with stuff. So I'm really, they said there's 100 of these. Maybe there's 20 that are like super crazy and interesting, and I'm curious because the one thing it did make me think was, they're putting a lot of content into this, and Mark's been quite fearless, and he's like, balance is hard, right? That was like his quote from the Q&A or whatever, or the content reveal. Yeah. And it's like, that's how we got the Totem Life mod in Crucible. They went, hey designers, just like go make a load of stuff, and then someone just found one of these that was like, oh, this does like 1 billion damage, and then it became a whole thing, right? I'm sure they'll be on it to fix it, but I'm kind of excited to think like, what's going to be the Totem Life Explode Crucible, node in this enchantment feature. So yeah, super exciting.
I mean, Void Forge's mod was on there, or Star Forge's. That was one of the options. Imagine putting that on an axe, a rare axe. I mean, I can't even fathom the crazy items we're gonna make. It's gonna be probably more powerful than Crucible League. And talking about this, I'm kind of curious what you think about this, you guys. Does it I don't know if either of you have played Diablo 4 Last Epoch, but does this almost remind you of like legendary items or imprinting? Kind of. That's what I was thinking about it. Because there's specific mods that you're raising from uniques and you're placing them on these rare items. I wonder if there was a little bit of inspiration there, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, so it immediately made me think, an interesting like consolidation of this system would be something quite similar to that. Like imagine recombinators where you can meld a unique into a rare, and it has a chance to take, if you flesh this system out and it went sort of core or something. And that would be very similar to like, it would be reverse legendaries, right, in Last Epoch, essentially. And so yeah, no, the thought, I'm glad you brought it up, because the thought did go through my mind when I was watching it, but I'd completely forgotten. And I personally, I've been playing quite a bit of Last Epoch, just over, in this gap, and I've been absolutely loving it, and I really love that system. I think it adds such an interesting like tale to unique items. I don't know. What do you think, Drew?
Well, I mean, I haven't played Last Epoch or D4, but I had a chat with Paustron like a week ago. This is just so weird, because we had this exact conversation actually, because he asked me about how, they could do league mechanics in the future and things to do with unique items, because I love unique items. I think unique items are like the heart of Path of Exile, right? It's like, all these crazy unique items. And we were talking about some kind of system where you could use a unique item, maybe have the unique modifier, and then basically craft your own other stats onto it, as a league mechanic. And this is kind of the reverse of that. You're instead crafting a unique modifier, albeit a little bit weaker, onto, rare items. So it's not like all the way in there, but it's an interesting experiment, I think, to see what happens there with unique items, because a lot of unique items over time are just, the game gets harder and the unique items are constantly falling down the pecking order because they don't get buffed or anything. Mm-hmm. And people still want to try and play those unique items, but if they do, they're not strong enough. But yeah, this type of system where you can basically use a unique item in a sense with the modifier instead on like a currently strong piece of gear is really interesting. I'm interested to see what happens with it.
Oh, definitely. And I'm sorry that I gave you guys such a layup with the feature the community will enjoy the most. Obviously, it's going to be that currency trading system. I think everyone's going to enjoy it so much so there is a less than 2% chance that they remove it from the game, even though it's a league mechanic. What would be the outcry if they remove this going into 3.26? Because they said, we need an out. How do they have an out?
No.
How?
They're just saying that in case it really goes bad. That's all, they're just covering them. They're just covering themselves in case there's some incredible backlash, something they haven't thought about. There's no way this is leaving the game. There's no way.
I don't really think it's even yes, it's part of the league mechanic as like a feature in this patch, but really we all know that it's just a test. At the same time, gold is also a test in this patch, So they're just testing different systems to see how they will work in this game. They already know that they're going to work in PoE 2, but obviously PoE 1 has a lot of systems that already exist in place of those things, right? So they're kind of bringing this in, and it has to work with what is already there, which is why they're doing those tests. But even though it's presented as part of the league mechanic, and it is, it's kind of got the makeup and stuff, and it's been painted as this whole stock market thing, I think that it's a test, and if it goes well, it will stay in the game. Same with the gold for respecking.
Right. One last thing about the currency exchange. Before the Path of Exile trade website, currency is gone forever. Do you guys know what is the max amount of time it has taken you to trade for like a divine orb or something? Just, how many people have you whispered before? Because I have the number in my head, my max time. I'm curious what yours is. Either of you.
Okay, so I mean, I'll go first on this because I don't play trade very often at all, but I did play trade last league,
so.
Hardcore trade is a different thing entirely. Like people just respond just like that. They're just instantly responding. There's like one guy that I trade with for currency. He seems to be always online. It's actually ridiculous. As soon as you message him, he instantly adds you to party. He leaves his map straight away. Like, he's always level 100. The guy's just insane. Like, it's just crazy. He's farming all league. Like, I could log on now and I could probably trade him. He'd still be playing. Like, absolutely insane.
I love that. I love it. You're gonna be playing hardcore trade this league. Right?
I'm gonna be playing hardcore trade to start out. Yes, I will.
Oh, really?
I am, dude. I said if I got a bingo, I'll play hardcore. So I said I'd go to Dominus, but I got multiple bingos, so I'm just gonna try to go, as far as possible.
Good on you, mate.
If I rage quit too hard, and I just don't want to play the game anymore after losing multiple characters, maybe I'll swap. But I'm really gonna try to make it work. We'll have to see. It's gonna be a completely different beast. We can talk a little bit more about that on League Starters because I have some questions for you, Dream, about hardcore. So,
yeah, don't ask me.
Yeah, I know. Silver, my max whisper was 31 different people for a divine orb 2 leagues ago. Do you have a max?
Yeah.
On your end?
No, absolutely not like in a specific number, but I think I've repressed it. It's just an experience that I like grit my teeth and kind of, it's something. It's funny because it's one of those where every player, there's so many different types of Path of Exile play, and we all have different, views on it, and that's kind of what makes these conversations interesting and different podcasts and stuff. Everyone has like a different take, that is such a universal. It's such a win. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief, right? So yeah, it's a huge problem. I'm glad they're solving it.
Truly. And just to answer my own question from the beginning, the thing I'm looking forward to most are the 3 new boss fights. We saw 2 of them in the trailer. I'm really curious to see what that third one will be. I wonder if they'll go even further with the Path of Exile 2 tie-ins, and maybe they'll put in like Captain Heartland in his non-undead form. Is it Heartland, or is that the last Epoch guy? It's like Heartland or Heartland. Heartland, yeah, the one that has like the RNG abilities. That'd be really cool if he was the surprise third boss fight. If he's in PoE1, that'd be kind of cool in human form, but I'm really looking forward to those. I also saw that Camille did either 1 or 2 of the boss tracks, and then Michael did the other 2, or 1. So there's a lot of new soundtracks coming into the game. I don't know if you've heard the trailer music, obviously, and then the King's March theme. It's actually playing on stream right now, which is super awesome, so I can't wait to hear those boss fights too. That's what I'm most looking forward to. I know I'm weird, but they're good. I hope they're good.
Amazing.
Not weird at all.
Yeah, the music actually is just incredible for Path of Exile. It's insane. Like, I mentioned this in one of my videos a while back. Every single league, they somehow managed to capture the entire essence of a league in one track, 1 2-minute track. And it's just, like, if you go through each league and listen to that 2-minute track, you can feel it. You can feel what it's about, With this one, it just feels like exploration and, just like adventure. Yeah. And then if you go back to like Scourge, for example, it feels like, terror and just darkness. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? The music is so good. So yeah, I look forward to hearing those boss tracks as well. I think that'll be great.
Yeah, and I think like it makes sense because this was the only thing that made me feel like this. I looked at this league review and I was like, are they gonna say at the end? Are they gonna go 4.0? Right? Are they going to just like be like, oh, this is 4.0, right? Because they kept going, like the melee changes, this and that. And I thought, do you know what? The only thing that's not made this 4.0 is an Atlas expansion. If they had just put one boss and maybe added like a slight tweak to the Atlas mechanic, or that, it would have been like, yeah, I don't think anyone would have scoffed at the idea that it was a 4.0 expansion,
Not at all.
So I totally get why like the bosses were a big deal for you. Because that was it. That was the only thing it was kind of lacking in terms of big pinnacle boss,
Yeah, 100%. And I'm in that same camp. This feels like 4.0. I'm not sure. Maybe 4.0 is a mystical thing that's never going to happen. We're 25 expansions into 3.0. I don't know. Maybe after PoE 2, something's going to occur, but we'll just have to see. So we spent a good 30 minutes on the league mechanic. I want to get into the most exciting thing, the most anticipated thing for a certain individual on this podcast. He's been asking for it for as long as I've been talking to him. And finally, Grinding Gear Games saw you, Dreamcore, okay? They saw you and the 5 other people who wanted to play Gladiator right now. I'm just kidding. They said, we're going to redesign Glad, and we're going to make it kind of busted. Give us your rundown. I know probably a lot of people here watched that video of yours where you gave your initial impressions, but just for those who didn't, what are your thoughts on the new Gladiator?
Well, first of all, they could have done anything with Gladiator and it would have been better than the old Gladiator. So it was a pretty low bar. But the new Gladiator has a lot of things that I think the whole kind of spec that is specialized into bleed and block should have. The new aggravated bleed mechanic is a great addition to the game. I thought they would just go with something where it's just like counting enemies as moving, a bit like Ensnaring Arrow, but they actually went for an entire different mechanic there where, you inflict aggravated bleeding, which is a bleed which deals damage at the highest amount as though the target was moving, but they're not actually counted as moving like with Ensnaring Arrow. So that's a great addition, and that's going to be really nice for playing those normal bleed builds that don't take Crimson Dance. And there's also a bunch of other stuff going on there. There's the War of Attrition node, which is going to be, I'm pretty sure that's going to be Quinn's favorite node, because that means that he's going to have damage on any build, because, even if he spends 100 seconds in a boss fight, he's going to actually have damage at some point.
How do you think
Which
that's
is,
going to work, by the way? Because the wording is a little ambiguous. Like, if you die or log out, will that maintain on the boss?
You should keep the damage, yeah, because that's the wording is if they've ever been in your presence. So if you log out or die, you should keep the damage when you re-enter the amount of damage that you had. So if you've been in there 100 seconds, you log out, you go back in, you've still got 100% more damage, which is, it's a good node.
Yeah.
Then we've got the dual wielding node, which is honestly just really fun. The bonuses on there are quite interesting. I really like the idea that they've gone all in on that, because before with the Gladiator, it was like, it was mainly focused around sword and axe, maybe, a little bit of mace perhaps, but mace didn't really have anything going on for bleed or whatever, so it was just those two things. But they've just gone all in, dagger's there and represented, claws there, all these things are represented. Even if people don't really use them for that type of thing right now, it will create builds that people, or at least people will try to use them and play builds with them, which is really fun. That's kind of the whole point of that, right? And there's the new retaliation skills, retaliation skills, they look really fun. They look, they just look, when you use them, they just look like they explode screens and stuff. That's amazing. I don't know how they're going to feel to, because can you really make an entire build around retaliation skills? You'll be this kind of character that is waiting for things to happen. You're waiting to block an attack. You're waiting to be hit by enemies. It's very, very awkward. It's almost going to be that secondary effect that you use, because that's how counterattacks were used before. On a Gladiator, you would use it as in like a 4-link with maybe cull or life gain on hit, things like that. I hope they're fun to use, but I'm a little bit skeptical on it.
You have to react. Once the trigger occurs, then you have to press the skill for it to go off, right? That's how.
Yeah, exactly. You get like a window of time to actually use that skill, and you can modify that on the tree. There's lots of things to modify, and you can even make it so that you get have a chance to gain another use, or not spend a cooldown use or things like that. And then obviously there's the block branch on Gladiator, which is really nice, especially the buff to dual wielding. The base block for dual wielding is now 20%, and then if you take that node, you get 40% attack block. And versatile combatant was buffed, which is really nice. I've already looked at the new tree. It's quite trivial to be able to get 65 block on a dual wielding Gladiator, like pretty trivial. So that's going to be really nice.
Oh yeah. Most definitely. So, would you classify this as a W? This change to Gladiator?
It is definitely a W compared to the old Glad, yeah. And I really look forward to playing it. It's going to be fun.
Silver, any thoughts on the Glad?
Just to echo what Dream said, really, I guess it seems like, to me, it really seems like really undiscovered territory now. Like, this league is going to be a huge testing ground for people that I think are brilliant build creators and have a really good understanding of the game. Like, maybe I think Verenastra's maybe a bit of a bait for that skill. I actually think that's my initial feeling about it. Maybe it's not. Like, that's not my sort of expertise. But I do think it's a bit of a bait. I think there's like so much interesting stuff. Like you said, the change to versatile combatant are huge. And the same with retaliation skills. I think someone's going to figure out some incredible stuff with that. Like the Bladeful one that's like you have to be dual wielding. That's because I think retaliation skills. So so often we don't have a problem with clear. We have a problem with tough rares and bosses, and that is like an incredible high hit single target sort of thing. It looks like. So yeah, I could imagine something with that, some of these retaliation skills combined with some of these, different dual wield options on the Glad will be really, really, really powerful. And yeah, poor Champ as well. I think the Champ took a little bit of a knock.
That was a pretty big nerf. I did not expect that at all, but that's a big nerf to Champion.
Great. Even if it's just like, we're doing it for this league so that people play Glad and experiment with it. I'm like, cool. Like, good on you.
But it's an interesting direction to push Champion into, because it now seems like it's kind of worse for melee in general, because you lost that attack speed. It's worse defensively, right? You lost on a build that can't gain Fortify, you lost 5 Fortify. And you also lost the armor and evasion from that node as well. And now you've kind of got this node behind the Fortify node, which is applying Fortify to allies, which kind of makes it more of either like minions or like a party support, which is, it kind of makes sense for Champion, because Champion has all of the aura stuff going on. you know, and the banner things and that. But I don't know. Yeah. But I didn't expect that. I didn't expect many of the Ascendancy changes, to be honest with you. The Chieftain change was crazy, completely crazy.
I'm hyped for that. That's the only other source of infinite power besides the
Red Blade banner,
right? Oh, that's so cool, right?
That's a really good node. It's a really,
really
good
want
node.
to
And
hear
also,
your thoughts on that. Actually,
yeah, the way they changed Chieftain is really good now. So before you had to path through Tar 4 to get to Tukohama to get those, you know, Fist of War and Ancestral Call on your body armor. And now, if you don't want to use Warcries, you can path through the Explode node, which is just a node you want to take on every build pretty much because it's just that good. Right? So nice for mapping and stuff.
Okay. Unless you take Perfect Agony, right? Is that because this is the way I'm looking at this interaction? Because this is what I've been playing around with early, and I was going to just ask you off stream, but now it's come up. I was like, the way it reads to me is Perfect Agony is not going to be able. You're not going to be able to trigger ignites on the Hinakura's Death Fury because it's any non-critical hit, which I don't think you can't crit off those.
You need to add. You'd have to add base crit to the explosion with something like Brittle.
Yeah,
that's the only way you can. That's the only way you can crit with them. Yeah.
So but apart from that, I think it's like a given on every build, like you say, right? Every chieftain.
And obviously, if you want to play Warcries and path through that instead to get to Tukohama, which and Warcries are kind of interesting now. They've been changed a lot. Some of them got quite heavily nerfed in terms of previous builds. Like for example, Battle Mage's Cry doesn't have the spell damage translating into attack damage anymore, which was a huge nerf to strength sackers. Yeah. Probably a warranted nerf as well, because those builds were like on top of melee.
Very much.
Yep. But yeah, I just think that change to the pathing on Chieftain is really, really good, because Tukohama suffered from this problem where, you know, Fist of War didn't work with Tar 4 to begin with. Like, it was a bit of a weird thing, and sometimes you just wanted the extra support, but you didn't care about the Mirage extra attack. Right, if you're playing ailments, you definitely didn't care about it. So that's just a great change. Really, really, really good change to Chieftain, and one that I completely caught me completely off guard. I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah, they just rebalanced it, right?
They've been cooking.
They truly have. And, I mean, we're talking about cooking. So Ascendancy changes are great and all, but who predicted a brand new Ascendancy class? Anyone? Any bingo cards? I don't think so. The Warden. What do people think about this? The Warden, not only is it a brand new Ascendancy class, you know, RIP Raider. Not a lot of people were playing Raider except for Local Hole, who had a Lightning Strike Raider that is now completely dead. But it will probably work pretty well on the Warden. They brought back Tinctures, and they added a bunch of new nodes that'll combo well with attack-based elemental builds. What do you guys think about the Warden Ascendancy?
Okay, so first, I think it's a big win in terms of the design philosophy that they expressed, which is like, we want our ascendancies to be thematic and have their own design space in the game. I think that is really nice to hear, because I think that, like you said, the problem with Raider, it was like just generic good thing that goes fast. It's like, okay, cool, boring, but useful in certain scenarios. And I think the champ was kind of like that, weirdly, as well. And that's where I think they're trying to carve out a different identity for the champion, maybe over the next couple of leagues. Yeah, to be honest, I've looked at it and I've been so excited about a few other things that I'm like, I can't really get my head around it yet. I think I'd have to really sit with it and chew on it to go like, okay, 50 stacks of shock. How can that be? You know, and everyone was getting hyped about the taming and like that it was going to be this 2,000 increased damage thing, which they have, for anyone who doesn't know, they have explicitly said the taming is changing. So that isn't going to be working. But yeah, it seems interesting. I would be surprised if we didn't see potentially some changes to it based on its usage this league. It would be weird for an entirely new Ascendancy to come in. And like they said, the hardest thing is to get it to be like 10% played, right? Like an average level of play. Right. It's either going to be like 0.1 or 30, most likely, right? So yeah, I think it will go through some changes potentially, but yeah, just really cool that they're offering something new. I'm going to wait for smarter people than me, like Dreamcore, to figure it out.
Oh, you've already figured it out, right, Dream? Right, man?
It looks like a really fun Ascendancy. As Silver said, it's way better than Raider because it's very specific. You know, and it was Something that I said in my predictions video for this league is that I wanted Raider to represent right side melee in a way that none of those classes really do on that side. You know, Trickster can do some melee builds, but it's not really, you know, but Raider focusing on elemental damage in that capacity. Obviously, tinctures are only for melee weapons as a baseline. There is a node on there which allows you to spec into ranged weapons with tinctures. But as a baseline for this class, it is kind of doing that, representing right side melee. So I really, really like the design of it, first of all. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is to see if Bark Skin still works the same as what it did in Affliction, because the wording on the skill, like as they showed it, was slightly different. You know, one of them was like increases your armor on the Affliction one. Obviously, we know that it increased your armor, and it also made you take flat minus physical damage from hits, from attack hits. Mm-hmm. And now it just says reduced physical damage per bark, which could mean anything. It could mean additional physical damage reduction. It could mean increased armor. It could, you know, there's a lot of things that it could mean. But there's also a node behind the bark skin, which is really, really cool. It interacts with bark skin in a way that makes it stronger against spells, which is something that bark skin doesn't interact with at all, you know? So now you're taking flat minus damage from elemental damage hits, which is a really strong stat, and people don't realize how strong that is, but it's extremely, extremely strong when you stack it with other things, because it's one of the last things in the calculation. So, you know, after you've mitigated with your resistance and things like that, then comes in this minus damage taken, and then you end up taking barely anything. So that's a very, very strong stat. So I'm interested to see exactly how Barkskin is going to function now that it's going into the core game.
Especially with endurance charges, right? Where's the reduced in the calculation? Because what is it, 4% reduced LE damage per endurance charge now?
Yeah,
that's massive, yeah?
Yeah, that's elemental damage reduction, which would have been on the same layer previously as armor applying, and obviously if you use Transcendence, that's where it applies. So it would work the same as armor does for physical damage with additional physical damage reduction. First, the armor reduction is calculated, and then the additional reduction is additive with that for the final reduction. Okay. So so obviously if you don't have any other things that apply to that, then it's just going to be that flat amount, and it doesn't matter how big the hit is, it's going to reduce it by that much. And I get it. It's just really strong.
I got to give you kudos again, dude, because you also predicted that Fizz damage taken as X would be changed in some way, and yeah, they gutted it, right? It's basically gone from the game. Except Cloak of Flame.
Yeah, I mean, there's still unique items that you can use. Cloak of Flame and Lightning Coil weren't changed at all, and I actually really like that idea, because what they've gone for there is they've added all these new base types to the game which have higher armor, right? Higher evasion, higher energy shield, and they've left like Lightning Coil and, I mean, Cloak of Flame especially, it just has like barely any energy shield, right? What you gain from that is just that 40% of Fizz taken as fire. It works for damage over time as well. It's a very strong stat, but you don't really gain much else from it other than the resistance. Maybe some ignite duration on ignite builds, but Lightning Coil has been left behind a bit by that change, because now, you know, it grants significantly less armor and evasion than those high-end bases will now. So that 50% Fizz taken as lightning is still really strong. People are still going to use it, but they're going to have to find a way to deal with the rest of the physical damage now, you know, because all of those helmet stats are gone. Like the helmet modifiers, Corel modifiers gone, the Gravicious on body armor is gone, all of the Delve Fizz taken as mods are gone, all of the Watcher's Eye Fizz taken as mods are gone, so big shake up, especially for right side characters, but...
Yeah, and like, good, right? Like, one, it's just good to have a bit of a change in the meta, but two, it's like, it was so, for as long as I can remember, that's how I was doing my body armors. You know, like Gravicious mods and like, you know, the helmet mods and stuff, and
True.
It's like, yeah, it's just nice not to have to do it. And I think that's the thing that they're constantly doing, right? When anything feels mandatory, you have to change it up. And it's really nice that they've given us the carrot and the stick, like you were just saying, Dream. I think it's such a good point. They've given us the stick where they've taken away all these mods, right? But then they give us the carrot in that we get these amazing new base types. And I wonder how rare you guys think these base types will be, because I think that's another interesting one of the things that I reflect on playing last Epoch was I really liked this drop only T6 T7 mod experience, and I haven't really played a lot of D4 since the changes, but I played a bit. And I like the greater affix thing where it's like drop only, you know, or mostly drop only, like higher quality affixes. So yeah, I don't know what are your guys' thoughts in terms of how rare you think these would be? Would they be like something where it's like, oh my god, I got a Celestial, whatever it is, a Royal Plate or whatever the new thing was, right, for armor? Or will it be like fairly common, do you think? Because I know they're trying to go more for like higher quality, reduced quantity, right?
How rare are they? That's a great question, actually. I hadn't really thought about how rare they might be. Obviously, as you go into higher maps, you still kind of have to compete with all of the old base types, because from what we've heard, there's no other. They aren't being removed from the pool, so there's still all those base types dropping. I think they said yellow, red, and purple maps is where these base types start dropping. So the presumption there is that, you know, the one that was added, because there was 3 different ones added, right? Like that go up in power. So presumably the first one drops in yellows, the second drops in reds, and then the largest one, the strongest one, drops in purple maps.
Oh, that's a riot, man. Don't say that. Don't say that.
No, they've changed T17s, right? They acknowledged that they were like, did you hear the thing? They were like, I'm sure most people saw this, but they're like, we accidentally put 2 devs on the same thing, and they both doubled the life of the minions. That was like a big mistake that they made with T17 maps.
That is insane.
Yeah, it was. I think I want to like just caveat that might not be exactly the quote, but it was something in that field.
I think that's exactly what they said. Yeah, and they ended up reducing the life by what, 55% for all monsters in T17s, and the damage by 35. That's a big reduction.
Yeah. So don't fear, everyone, okay? T17s might actually be doable for us mere mortals this league, you know? We might actually be able to get to enjoy this content. And I love the way they justified the philosophy on that. Just on T17s, I know it's not huge. It's quite a controversial topic. But I actually really like the fact that they were like, yeah, we're still making them rare. And like, it's like a really exciting bit of content that drops every now and then. You're not going to be getting loads of T17s, because I really agree with the point. I'd seen a lot of feedback saying, well, why don't you just make them accessible and stuff? And they were like, well, then it's just like T insert number +1, right? It's like N+1 forever. What are we going to do? Just keep going up to T18, T19? It's like something has to be mechanically different to kind of cap this content out. And it's something that I personally had like hoped they might start to look at with unique maps, and that unique maps could become this like longer form content, maybe that you run, you know, you go like, okay, I've got 40 minutes here or 30 minutes. I'm going to run this like crazy big unique map that's super rewarding. And I get why they haven't done that, but like T17 seem to be somewhere in that design field, you know?
Super hot take here. Add the Void mod to T17 maps. That's how.
Oh, dude, you're a lunatic. Look, he's got one taste of hardcore and he's gone mad.
I was a T17 map enjoyer, and people hated me for it. Maybe my build was that busted, because I almost had 0 problems with T17s.
The Void mod is a great idea for Valdos maps. It's so good. I love that, and like all of the crazy stuff that can go on in Valdos maps is amazing. But it's deliberately there for a reason, right? Like it's a Valdos map. It's meant to be this kind of special weird addition to the game. It's very much opt-in. Like you can see what reward you're going to be getting before you even do it.
Right.
Tier 17s are meant to be a core progression part of the game, and I think if you're playing softcore, you shouldn't have to lose your character if you die in a tier 17. So that's
you're right.
I would love it, but I'm a masochist in some ways, so I think it would be funny. I think this league, more people will be sent to the Void, because more Valdos will be dropping. I got 40 out of 40 last league, you guys. I don't know how many Valdos you got. I got one Valdos the entire time I played. So I'm glad they buffed the drop rates, because I'd love to run them just for the heck of it, you know? Not the Void ones, of course. I'd never do that, you know? I think
it was one of those contrast things where so many of them were dropping in Affliction, but that was because of Affliction and all of the crazy juicing, right, that was going on. And it was suddenly like a crash landing in Necropolis, and people were like, oh my god, like this is the actual drop rate of these items. Like, what am I going to do? I like them being really rare, because it's one of those things that when it drops, it should be one of those things you're excited to open it. And they are obviously they're increasing the drop rate, so you get to do that opening thing more often. But you're still going to have that excitement of opening the box because the actual amount of Mage Bloods is not increasing, or not just Mage Bloods. It will be all of the rare items, Nimmies and whatever else. So you're gonna have more of that experience of opening the box, but it's going to be a lot less likely for you to get like a good Valdos out there. I mean, for me personally, like I can just imagine pretty much every Valdos that I open just goes into my stash and I never look at it again because it's just one of those maps that I'm not going to run, right? But there is always the chance that you can get a really cool map, and obviously if I got a good map, then I'm going to run it. Like if I think I can do it and I'm going to get a Mage Blood from it, even if I'm in SSF or whatever, I'm going to try it. Like if it's going to void my character, it's going to void my character. I don't care. I'm going to try it. Which
Just
is what that's the whole point of
record.
those things, right?
Yeah. Make sure you record it for us all, please.
Seriously, dude.
Yeah. This try. I'm sure it might come up in the next topic or something, but it's nice that they've added one of the small details that I really liked is that they've added like other really like rare but high dopamine like moments that can occur just in your regular content and like the rest and a lot of other content, like Calandra's getting like the reflective mist, right?
You go, man. You go.
That is huge. That's huge. Like again, if this was any other league, people would be like, "What? Like 200 life on a ring is coming back," or whatever it was, in the thing. Like this, there's like that is amazing. The Nameless Seer just being in the like broader content pool
and the
having a chance, the scrying thing.
I hope they're going to make sure he's visible, dude. Like, I don't want to be missing the Nameless Seer when I see him. It's got to be visible. Come on.
Yeah, hopefully that was just a Wildwood thing, right? But so like that is like another, like a whole other thing. And then like this was just like a couple of bits that I saw in the patch notes that I thought was like double anoints in blighted maps, like dropping double anoint and amulets. That's huge. That could be like a huge win. And what was the other one? God, I made a note of it. But yeah, like, what do you guys think in terms of like the ritual?
Buffed.
Yeah,
you have the audience with the king fragment now that can be found rarely. That which was taken or that which was taken away is now the Parandus Pact, which is pretty darn cool.
I like that. I think they made the right decision there as well. They probably had a bit of discussion internally. Should we add? If that which was taken was ever going to go into PoE 1, this was the time.
Yeah.
And now it is never ever coming back, guys. So nobody ever mention it again. And but Parandus Pact is there, which is that is a much better duel in terms of design and balance, because you don't just socket it into your passive tree and gain a bunch of stats. You must align your passive tree properly and get like. And you get what you invest into it, which I really enjoy about that duel. That's a good addition to the core game, I think. Yeah.
It's the same logic. Like every build had to basically run that which was taken, right? And so it it wasn't a choice. And the same with the Adorned change, right? It's like cool. It just felt so mandatory for so many builds to eventually switch over to the Adorned, right? Like to build your build and then become an Adorned build. It was like, okay, that's just So I agree, mate. I agree.
Awesome.
Try. What have we got left to cover? Because I feel like we got so much to talk about.
All right. We're just gonna blow past this last point because I know neither of us or none of us play consoles, but it's still cool to see that Grinding Gear Games is not only investing in consoles for PoE 2. We know that they've done a ton of work on it, but they've also done work for PoE 1 as well. And this is something that I've been pitching to people, saying, "Hey, this is a big reason." To showcase why they're going to continue developing PoE 1. You don't do something like this if you plan on sunsetting the game in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You don't constantly optimize a platform in which, you don't make a ton of revenue right now. Not a lot of people play compared to PC unless you plan on continuing to develop the game. So the console native ports is a big win, but we don't need to dive into it today. The last thing on the release page I need to know, are either of you getting supporter packs this league? Did anything, stand out to you from the supporter packs at all? The rower racing? No?
No,
the map
do
device
you know what,
that
for me...
tracks all your fragments? Come on.
No, not on it. So the main thing, I think... Okay, so like, I've got this idea, like, I think I've said it to you guys before, I like to try and think of my builds as like, quite thematically, and like because when I'm playing them I like to have this like silly like imagination element of it, like, oh, this is the build. And one of the builds that I really wanted to play was like a paladin, because they announced the Spiritborn in D4, and everyone was like, "Oh, what a shame! We would have loved Paladin or whatever, right?" And I was like, "Oh, like," and there's just, I don't know, the pack didn't really give me the right Paladin vibe, so that was kind of what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it
yeah.
either. But the other
second
one...
pack of the Penance one looks really. I don't like the what is this one called? The Paladin one. I'm not a fan of. The second tier of the Penance pack is pretty cool. I like the armor set is nice, and I really like I love the Trial Master as a character, so having him in your hideout is pretty cool. So that's that's alright. But as always with supporter packs, you know, I'm not buying anything until the league is good. Basically, that's kind of my rule for supporter packs. So if it's a good league, you know, I'm happy to contribute, and if it's not a good league, then because you know. I gotta tell you guys, like, I love the Turtle hideout, okay? Turtle hideout was amazing, but I couldn't buy it because Necropolis was bad.
Yeah. Oh, vote with your dollars.
Go buy it right now.
It's just,
Dreamcore, go buy it.
No, not buying it.
This guy has character. He has morals, okay? He will never sell out. Never sell out, Dreamcore.
I just couldn't buy it. It was an amazing hideout as well. Sad.
Oh, wow! You are a better man.
Ultimately, that's the stuff that will come up in the finance meetings, right? Like that. I agree with you. I think that's a good logic. I don't know. What about you, Try? What you gonna? Try's already bought them, hasn't he? He's already spent his money.
I bought the Penance pack, so yeah, I liked it. I wanted that map device. I like being able to see how many maps I've run and all the fragments and stuff, and not only being able to track it in Settlers, but all leagues. I think that's so cool. I don't know if it's historic. I presume it's not historic, and it will just begin tracking now. I guess I could probably ask that on Reddit or in the chat if anybody else has actually played with the map device yet. But I thought that was so cool. So I definitely picked that up. Yeah. But I'm going to get 40 out of 40. So I'm going to play at least, you know, my money's worth of it. Because I'm a completionist in that regard. So I did like Necropolis. I played quite a bit of it. I did like T17 maps. The Graveyard was trash. So I agree with you guys there. I didn't like the Graveyard. All right. Yeah. We are done with the Settlers page, but we're not done with the pod unless people have to hop. I don't think we do. Let me know if you do. Just, you know, give me like a huge wink or something. Okay, we're good. All right, let's move into the spicy topic of the day. My YouTube feed is starting to be filled with League starter guides. Okay? So, both of you, obviously, it's been rustling around in your heads. What are you guys thinking of starting this league with? We can start with Dreamcore.
All right, so... Okay, you're probably going to be surprised by this, but I'm probably not going to start Gladiator. That might surprise you guys. But the Chieftain changes completely took me by surprise, and I have to say that I'm a major Chieftain enjoyer, because Chieftain is so nice on League Start, you know, the resistances and the explode and stuff like that. And right now I'm looking at Chieftain Slams. It just looks really, really fun. It looks like something that... I mean, it's something that I've been waiting to play. As I said, my favorite build was that Bleed Earthquake Jug that I played, you know, back in Ultimatum. So it's something that I've been waiting to play for a very long time once again. So I haven't really looked too much into skills and stuff, but I have had a look at the new tree, and I think that the tree is kind of lining up really nicely for Chieftain. We got that new cluster sort of up near Avatar of Fire that gives you a bunch of max res. What that means is that Chieftain is now going to be able to get 90 max elemental resistances quite comfortably without a shield, which is honestly kind of crazy. So yeah, that's that. Right now I'm looking at Chieftain Slams as a starter, but yeah.
All right, nice. And you're hardcore, right, Dreamcore? Just
definitely, yeah.
And SSF, you said you're gonna go?
Yeah.
Whew. All right, Silverman, what are you gonna do?
Okay, so very much the same. I have, for some reason, over the last sort of 4 or 5 leagues, just started to fall more and more in love with the Chieftain. I think it's a... my first was RF when the Hinakura's Fury, I think, came in. And that was just super exciting. But yeah, so I'm... Oh, God. Okay, so I'm sort of torn a little bit. I'm thinking maybe, like... I want to maybe try, like, a Leap Slam Ignite like Chieftain I'm sort of leap slam of groundbreaking. I think that might be
Oh my.
kind of interesting.
Holy.
Yeah, that might
Giga
be kind of
Chad.
interesting and fun. Yeah, big slam, and then get like the MTX and stuff.
I tell you now, like I think people are sleeping on Slam Ignite because so everyone's looking at Bleed, and obviously people should be looking at Bleed because they've added all these Bleed things. They didn't touch Ignite, and if you guys remember a few patches back, they added all of these new clusters for Melee Ignite to the game, which nobody used because Melee Ignite wasn't very good at the time. And now they're all there sitting dormant, and one of the biggest changes they did to Melee in this patch was that they removed the totems. The totems already gave nothing to Melee ailment builds, except for Protector for poison, right? So you could like stack more poisons. But when it comes to like Bleed and Ignite, you gain nothing. The more Melee damage from War Chief didn't give you any damage for your ailment, right? So now that damage has been rolled into the base attack of these abilities, which means that Bleed and Ignite from these attacks are going to be way stronger, way stronger. There's also the Fist of War change, which is like, 30% more damage or something on top of the. I think it was like it's a bit less than 30, maybe 20%. I can't remember the numbers exactly, but that's a big change as well. So yeah, Ignite slams might be really good. Like that's
That's the idea anyway. Or well, that's one. Okay, that's one idea which I feel more confident will do well. I think like it will at least be able to get me to a point where I'll be able to farm for another build, right? And again, like Hinakura's Fury and stuff. I think it like if I want to go, I probably want to maybe do something like I'm thinking maybe like Expedition again, just because it feels thematically appropriate. But yeah, just that like large clear stuff. And then I've got like a super ridiculous thing that I've been trying to wrestle with that I don't know if I can even get to work, to be honest, which is Perfect Agony, Melee, Ignite, doing the whole shenanigans with like Glacial Hammer of Shattering, Mariline's Fallacy, and Winds of Fate, and doing like a multi-strike. Every 3 hits you're doing a big crit to trigger the ignites, getting like 600 dot multi from Perfect Agony.
Wow.
And again going Chieftain just for the comfort, like the not like the explode, because I was referencing earlier. I'm not sure I won't be able to trigger the explodes with the crit shenanigans, but the resistances, getting 90 all res capped easily, like you said, Dream. But I don't know. The thing is, I can't quite get it right in POB. I'm not sure if the damage numbers are accurate, so it's a tough one. But I love the idea of like, and then this is just another stupid thing, like the Spiritborn in D4. I thought that was kind of an interesting concept or something.
Oh hell yeah! Don't be afraid of saying that, man. It looked pretty damn cool.
It's a cool concept for sure. And there's just something about it that was like this idea of having like, like this 2-handed staff. It's kind of like almost monk-like kind of like idea, and then frost blinking around and maybe using that for the no moving part to get the to do my penetration and taking that on the chieftain to get the -20 res. And then I don't know. I just think there's something maybe there, but it will be ridiculously hard to. It's a high risk. It's a very high risk, I think.
All right. Both of those sound super interesting. You guys are fixated on the Chieftain, and right now I've got 3, and Chieftain is the 3rd. I kind of want to play Sunder Chieftain, and this, I have to preface everything I'm about to say with this. I'm playing hardcore for the first time ever. Okay, I've never played hardcore in any video game ever. I feel like I'm gonna have a really bad time. Dreamcore, I'm looking for some advice here. What happens when I die? What should my reaction be? Should I just be like, oh, okay, let's go again? Should I go punch something? Should I just,
No, you definitely don't punch something.
What do you do? Not a person, but like a pillow. I don't know.
Depends if you want to go again or not, right? That's like, it's got to be your choice. But ultimately, like, if anyone plays hardcore, you can't be too attached to a character. That's just like, when your character dies, that's it. You know that it's going to die at some point. In a way, the goal of hardcore is for your character to die at some point, right? It's like you're going to push the limits, and then your character is probably going to die at some point, which is kind of what it is. But you just gotta. I mean, take your time, play slower than you usually do. pay attention to things that you may not usually do, like cap your resistances and things like that is very important.
Right.
Make defensive choices where you wouldn't usually do it. Instead of clicking anger, click determination. Right. Things like that.
Definitely.
And like just pay way more attention. This is such an obvious thing, but like just the thing that always stood out to me is just if something feels sketchy, it is sketchy 99% of the time, right? So like you don't try and skirt it. Just portal, reload the zone, or skip it, right?
Yeah. Do I need a macro? Dreamcore, do you use a macro?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So I need.
I think some really good players don't use macros, right? Like Alkaiser doesn't use a logout macro. He just like sometimes he manually logs and sometimes he like misses the logout and dies, right?
That's gonna be me.
That's kind of base, by the way, not using a macro. But I think if you're playing hardcore, because the game is kind of balanced around logout macro in a way, so
right.
They've already it's not like it's not illegal or anything like that. That's one of the things I'm really excited for PoE 2, by the way. Is like logout macro not being a thing and actually being, if your character's in a bad place, you're in a bad place. That's it. Even if you log out, you're going to be there. You're going to still be there, So
it's going to be lovely.
Yeah, man.
I'm super excited for that. We'll talk about PoE 2 in just a second, but my other two, I think top spot right now, you guys, is probably Ellie hit Warden. I kind of want to try it out. I've been just looking, like I'm not a build maker in the slightest. You guys are far more well versed in that field than I am. I just looked at the patch notes. I looked at a little bit of PoB that isn't even updated yet. That looks like it could potentially be fun. Obviously melee, I'm not going to go bow Ellie hit or anything. And then number 2 is something that I think a lot of people are going to play, and that's Bleed, Lacerate, Gladiator. And that probably is the better defensive option, because even with like Barkskin eventually on the Warden, I think just playing a Gladiator or a Duelist at the start, being a little bit tankier, grabbing all the defensive nodes, maybe going Sword Shield and just taking it slow. That is probably the better option for hardcore. Unless I want to be like you guys and go Chieftain and just get max res really, really quickly. So, but it's going to be interesting.
Chieftain and out of those three, Chieftain and Gladiator are going to be the best options for starting in hardcore. But
definitely,
yeah, it's a big risk, I think, with the Warden right now because not knowing how strong the bark skin is and it's really prone to getting it will get taken off eventually. And then you're just exposed to evasion, right? So but it would be really cool to see you do it. So maybe that could be like if you burn out of hardcore, you can have a lot of fun with the new Warden. I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. I think build diversity is going to be pretty wild this patch, you guys. I think we didn't touch on this too much, and we can talk about it briefly here. But the fact that they went with we're just going to put a whole bunch of changes in the game to do with characters and let you go wild is bold, and unlike anything I've seen in my time playing Path of Exile. I started in Blight, okay, and usually when there are a lot of balance changes, it's to keep player power in check, right? Take fun away. I think with this patch, they're just going ham, saying you break everything, but be prepared for the coming in 3.26, because we might need to tone some stuff down. What do you guys think about that philosophy that Mark is going with?
Totally unexpected. Like brilliant. Completely unexpected, because as you said, usually their changes are very measured, very calculated. They kind of know exactly. In the reveal, Mark even just said that they don't even really know what's going to happen here. Like that is, we're in uncharted territory here with this patch. Like, they don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be some wildly busted builds, like really crazily busted builds. There's going to be things that can just tank everything in the game with some of these mechanics. I like it because, so here's the thing when it comes to like balance in Path of Exile, right? Mm-hmm. People talk about balance all the time about, like DD being too strong or something like that, and then you can't play other builds because, you feel like you're doing yourself an injustice because you could be playing DD and things like that, right? I think if they go for this crazy idea where they just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, and for a patch or two, the game might just be really fun because nobody really knows what's going on and everybody's just experimenting with all of these things. And yes, there's going to be some wildly broken things, and some things are not going to be so good. You know, people are going to try some things and they're like, oh, it doesn't work how I thought it would, and it's not that great. But I think doing this kind of patch where there's so many changes, it just makes the game fun. It doesn't really matter if it's balanced, right? It's not really... It's going to be fun for this patch. Maybe next patch there's still going to be a bit of weird stuff going on. They're going to bring things in line, and the meta will start to shake out at that point. But yeah, I just think it's going to be a really fun patch because there's going to be so much experimentation. You know, there's loads of new things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I think it's you don't feel like when everything's in chaos, you don't feel like you have to play anything, right? There's no one knows how it's going to shake out. And obviously the thing is, you can look at builds that were really good. Like I think like Viper Striker the Mamba will be like is like an example of something that I think will just obviously be really good because it wasn't like meta by any chance, but like, you know, Ziggy played it and I remember catching his stream and it was just strong, super strong. And then it just got doubled, you know, or like, you know, virtually doubled. It's like, cool. The way Perfect Agony works with it, like, will be busted. And then it's like another one is like, Frostblades. Like Frostblades of Catabasis, and like those builds were fully functional, crushing content like already. Localhole's like Lightning Strike, you know, I was speaking to him a lot about that like last league, and yes, it was on a raider, but like, you know, that will probably, again, it's all been buffed. So yeah, it's just an interesting time to be a PoE player, and I think that's way more exciting. And I love the way there's something about the Q&A with Mark, where the way he was talking about it, I was just like, I don't know what it was. I just felt like really reassured, and like I was laughing out loud multiple times at things he said, because he was just like, you know, it won't be balanced, but we just like, so he sounded really like careless in a way, like he has it's like, and some people might interpret it that way, which obviously he's not, right? But he sounded really throwaway and like and like chaotic with it. But then in the exact same breath, in the exact same update, you know, they're also talking about how important it is that they deal with the actual problems players are experiencing, and why like getting the currency exchange market in there was a big deal. So yes, in terms of the build side, we're getting some like wild opportunities and it's like the meta's being thrown up. But in terms of the progress of the game, we're still getting that like good chicken soup for the soul. Like, oh, these are like really solid improvements to the game. So it's really nice to have that. Like, I feel like they're doing both. They've got that steady state improvement, but in the terms of like the actual league cycle and what we experience as like regular league players, we're like, who knows, you know? But it's not ruining the game in any way, is the way I would look at it. Yeah, so like, if you know, think about all of the changes they've made with like changes to Fizz Taken As and stuff like that. They're incredibly clinical and precise and very deliberate changes, which are identifying like very specific problems and staleness. And then the skill stuff is just wild. So it's like we've got very targeted clinical changes mixed with like a surface of wildness. And that's why like the league starter meta, right? Like this whole like, hey, which build's the best and stuff like this, right? Like, which we all hate. We all hate, right? Like, it's like none of us like that, the culture we have around that. That's why it's going to go crazy for the next like few days, you know, up to league launch. Yeah. And it's like you're going to have people who are incredibly talented and very good at the game who are going to nail some builds and it's going to be wicked. But you're also just going to have like, you know, donuts like me who are like trying to make a glacial hammer of showering work and failing probably.
Me too.
That's fine. You know? Yeah, it's like, and we love taking that. That's like the content we like to make or whatever, right? And I'm sure there's thousands and thousands and thousands of other players that are like not going to play the meta thing. They'll just, and it's so fun for those players, I think, to just not feel the pressure like you were talking about, Dream, to go, oh, DD, yeah. Yeah. So, rant over.
Oh, it was a beautiful rant, and I thought you brought up a really good point about Mark during the Q&A, but that also shined through during the actual reveal itself. You know, it was so polished, the entire 45-minute presentation, but at the same time, he seemed so down to earth and like careless with like, and here's this, and yes, we did this. I love the method of delivery, right? There's character there. The way, you know, Chris Wilson used to deliver them very deadpan, and I think that was beautiful in a way, because when you deliver it deadpan and there's all this stuff that's unexpected being revealed throughout the live stream, it's just like surprising and it's a different type of shock. But then with Mark going like, oh, and here is this, like you can really feel the character and the difference between the two, and that's cool. We don't want a mirror image of Chris with the passing of the torch, right? We love the hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games, but Mark is really putting his own spin on being the game director and face for Path of Exile 1. And so far, I think he's doing a great job for PoE 1. And...
Can I just...
Oh, yeah, go for it. Nope, it's going to be a segue, so you break in, dude.
Okay. All I'll say on that is I love the contrast between Mark and Jonathan. Oh. Right? Because Jonathan is like so kind of... in the details in particular, and like so hyped about like every, you know, he's like really trying to like get into the nitty gritty, and he loves the details. And Mark's just like the way, like you say, the contrast of his expression, just like, you know, what did he say that I think was such a good? He was like, yeah, balance is hard, you know. He was like, oh, we're changing all this. He was like, guys, balance is hard, you know. And it's like the contrast is brilliant. It's so nice to know that they're working on the game together, you know.
It's not so like it's polished, but it's not like, he doesn't sound politician-y, you know, like he's trying to be diplomatic with everything. He's just saying, here are my thoughts, right? I'm not filtering anything. Like
he's just a gamer.
What's going on? Yeah,
he's just a gamer.
Like he just sees the game as someone who wants to play the game. So that's, I mean, not to say that Chris wasn't, because Chris played the game as well, but I think that Mark has typically been more representative of a Path of Exile player. Like just him speaking, you can just hear that come out, you know, with what he says. Yeah,
and Silver, like you said, big contrast with Jonathan, the front man for Path of Exile 2. And that concludes our long PoE 1 discussion. Let's briefly talk about PoE 2. Because they told me directly, no PoE 2 news is going to happen on the live stream, okay? You know, I messaged them, I'm like, are you sure there's no PoE 2 news? Like, you're not baiting us, right? They're like, no, nothing. And then, when the screen went dark, I got a Discord DM from somebody from GGG that just said, we lied. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? And there's going to be a closed beta test coming up. We don't know when, but I'm sure both of you signed up and registered to hopefully have a chance to play on your own PC. Two things. How soon do you think this is coming? And do you think this means anything for the release date for early access to the broader public? For PoE 2?
Go on, Dream.
I think it will mean something for the broader release, because they're going to want to test it with a smaller amount of people to make sure there's no catastrophic errors going on, right? There's no things that are just absolutely awful in there. So yes, it will kind of impact that, because if everything's all smooth and that, they can go ahead with their initially planned date, whenever that is going to be. And otherwise, they're going to have to, you know, maybe spend a bit more time doing things, and perhaps they have several dates planned for in case things go wrong, right? Which is usually what people do, like a backstop of, you know, I go here or I go there. So yeah, that's how I could see it going. But I'm not sure in terms of when that's going to happen. Maybe late September or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe something like that.
Okay, late September, because I'm pretty sure the next bit of PoE 2 news we're going to get is going to be Gamescom, which is end of August. I think it's August 20th is when it starts, and GGG will be there. So yeah, I don't see a playtest happening during that first month of PoE 1's new league coming out, right, you guys? Not at all. Silver, do you have differing thoughts there?
No, same. I think it will be about 2 months in. I think we'll get halfway through the cycle, and we will get that's when they'll do it, because obviously it just makes perfect sense. The retention will dip off. Hopefully not as much as last league, but and then it'd be the perfect time for them to do it. Whether or not, you know, do you have any information? Have you guys seen anything about the NDAs around it and stuff? Will it be a private thing?
That was my next question. Yeah,
That's the
NDA
thing.
or no
So
NDA?
I would probably say NDA for the first test is what I would imagine. If it's going to be a smaller number of people, I think they will like reveal some things, and maybe you're allowed to like submit your footage or some. I don't know. That would be a lot of work depending on how many people get into it. But to be honest with you, I would not like to see too much come out of a first beta test, like because.
I get it.
Just because, like, and this obviously sounds counter to what I would want to see, right? But the reason being, we saw like that first event, the first creators event, that you got to go out to, and it was like the game wasn't in the best state, and people were making quite like strong reactions to that. Then the most recent one, you were saying a lot of people were saying, "Oh, the Flash changes. The game's amazing. Loot feels good. Everything, right?" I think the stuff that they're gonna want to test in a beta, like the economy, the way item buyouts is working, all that stuff. I'm sure that there's gonna be some things with that go really wrong, and I hope there are, because like it just means they get fixed quicker, right? Like,
Yeah.
And I just think it might be a bit misrepresentative. So I could imagine them doing like a small test, medium test, big test.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, in terms of big test, would be the release, like the open beta.
Right.
And so that would put, I think, if we're thinking November, like end of November, maybe, we don't know this, but
November
like
29th.
I'm November 29th.
That's my prediction. I predicted my first daughter's birthday, so just.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, there you go. So
that is impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, where would that put us if we looked at so 2 months from now would obviously be what, July, August, September, and then if we where would that then fit in for the medium sized one? Like
it's rough. So that's the thing. If they wanted to do an NDA test, why announce that publicly, you guys? Why get so many eyes on it? I think they got so many signups already. They got our emails from PoE 1. They know there are some blasters they can reach out to. I don't know. I'm a little bit perplexed. I think it might not be NDA. We'll see.
I think it will be until October.
Okay.
I think they'll do the first period will be, and they're going to let more and more people in. It won't be like here's a whole nother test. They're just going to like gradually let more and more people in, and then eventually the NDA will lift like a month before, and people will start to get hyped. That's my theory.
I think they kind of need to have an NDA on that initial test, because they kind of don't want like you said, if there's some problems going on with it, they don't want like a trickle of like. It's not like this one big thing that everybody sees, right? And it's like come and play the open, the open beta of Path of Exile or whatever. It's not this one big thing. They see like this trickle of content, which is maybe, some people love it, some people don't like these bugs or whatever, things like that.
Yeah.
And what they really want is they want this big thing that says, come play the open beta, and people just see it then and there, and then within this amount of time, they're already excited to actually go and do it. So if you don't have an NDA, you've got this like really slow trickle of things, and it doesn't feel as impactful. Like, if you think about like the current league right now, right, we had all these tiny little teasers, like tiny teasers, right? Some of them were actually quite big and impactful things, but it was nothing compared to the magnitude of the actual full reveal, right? And if they have that sort of like little trickle of things, unless they're hiding all of this like stuff that is not in that test, which. Really, if it's a closed test, they really want to test everything. They want things to be tested so that there's no like major bugs and stuff, right? So I think it makes sense that they would have an NDA for that.
If they do, they gotta vet their testers though, because if they're gonna do truly random guys, I reckon a lot of people will not care about the NDA. They'll leak stuff online, on Reddit, on Discord, post stuff on YouTube. That's the only thing that kind of confuses me a bit, if they're going to go with the NDA approach. But
so then the thing that we might have to look at it as, like, the different way to look at it would be they're going to have these tests are going to be very curated in terms of the content that you get to experience, right? Like you guys got to experience like the first 2 acts, I think, right? Like in all the tests so far. So maybe they just go, okay, here's a load of maps, ascendancies are turned off, but here's like a load of gear that puts you at a certain level, run a load of maps and play the economy, right? Or whatever mapping looks like. And so the worst case scenario, all we would get is, okay, here's a new map device. Like if someone leaked it, right? Like so we would know that, but we might not know all of the ways that it works. Or do you know what I mean? Like they might just create a very
Possible.
curated test setup.
Very possible.
Yeah,
It's interesting, guys. Like seriously, I'm very excited for the PoE 1 League, but I'm also excited for PoE 2, and it's great to see that they're doing such a good job, it seems, internally juggling the two. Because if PoE 2 is truly ready, you know, for a release this year, and they're just polishing everything up, getting it ready, and they were able to push this out, this substantial update, I mean, it's setting themselves up for success in the future. It's going to be good. Because if stuff like this continues to come out for PoE 1, I mean, I'm probably gonna play it. Silver, I think we chatted privately a few weeks ago about how like, oh, you know, PoE 2 once it comes out. I don't know if I'm going back to PoE 1. I don't know. But and then this drops, like, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to think.
Yeah, you're right. Eating my words, big time. Like the amount, how little I've thought about PoE 2, which I do think a lot about. In the last, you know, like since this reveal and just like even building up to it. Has definitely diminished, and so I'm definitely going to eat my words on that one. Like, if they put out a league like this, how could you not want to play it, right?
100%.
Like, it's
total agreement. Well, you guys, this has been an awesome episode of the Still Sane Pod. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to chat about with 3.25, with PoE 2, with Path of Exile in general, or you guys set here?
No. Welcome to King's March. That's the last thing I'm
Welcome to King's March. Heck
yeah.
yeah. All right, Dreamcore, go ahead. Let people who might not know who you are, I don't think that's anybody in the chat, but we'll see. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, Dreamcore on YouTube, Dreamcore_GG. I do like lots of mechanics, interactions, explanations, and all that kind of stuff.
He does a lot. He does a lot, guys, and it's really high quality. He's going to sell himself short. He's awesome. All right, Silver, you as well, man.
Yeah, so you can find me at SylverXYZ, Silver spelt with a Y. And yeah, I do. I've been doing a lot of PoE 2 content, mainly theory crafting stuff. So I'm a designer by trade, and so I do a lot of kind of designing ascendancy classes and playing around with different ideas, having some fun with the art and design of that stuff. So yeah, but do not come to my channel looking for in-depth, unique mechanics and things like that. Head to Dreamcore's channel for that stuff.
100%. Yeah, we all support each other here. These guys are both awesome. If you haven't already, make sure on this video to hit the like button, go to both of these guys' channels and subscribe to their channels as well. They're phenomenal, and all their content leading up to both PoE 1 releases and PoE 2's eventual launch has been phenomenal, and I'm sure in the far-flung future will be too. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks to both of you for coming and talking for these 2 hours here. It's been an awesome time. Can't wait to chat again. Maybe we'll do another one midway through or for the next league reveal for 3.26, the next PoE 2 one. It's been a great time. Thank you both.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.